marketing is not about who can outspend who, but it's really creativity. It means that you're only as good as like your idea.
Zack Honarvar is founder of The Good Internet. Sitting between the top creators online and brands, he explains how and why both sides are getting it wrong.
Right now, creators are conditioned to believe that brands are going to work with them once and then never again. Probably very similar to dating. They don't think they're getting a second date. They're like, all right, I'm just going to ask for the most amount I can and give you the very least that I can because you're not going to work with me anyway. That's why measurement needs to change on a time horizon. I pay you $100,000 for this post. Therefore, I need to make at least $101,000 tomorrow or this didn't work. And I think that's the wrong way of thinking about it.
Yeah, we live in the most saturated time ever. And the rule of 7 is now the rule of 21. Someone has to be exposed to something 21 times now before you're even in their sphere of consciousness.
I agree with that.
What do you think is the pattern you see in YouTube creator partnerships that really sets something apart from being good versus bad?
Definitely the
Zack Honarvar, I discovered you on LinkedIn a few years ago. You stood out to me because you have this amazing ability to storytell and your editing is top tier. I don't know if you remember this actually, but I reached out to you and I was like, bro, your editing is so clean. Who does that? And you were like, oh, I do it myself. I've never shared this with you, but I was like, damn, this guy's so good. And I studied your videos in how you were using text, how you were using movement, the way that you were layering yourself over different things. You really were an expander for me and how I started to edit content. So thank you so much for being an expander for me in content editing.
That's so sweet. I also like being referred to as an expander. That's such a good term. So even just to be able to see that someone else liked what I was putting out there and creating after such a short period of time is really encouraging.
Yeah, you're so good at it. I wanted to start with a bold move that you've made in the industry. You've shifted your business from being a YouTube creator management business, managing some of the largest names in YouTube like Yes Theory and Drew Binsky. And you've shifted into Good Story Studios, which is now specifically built to sell YouTube creator brand partnerships. You said the reason why you did this was because even Hollywood's biggest talent agencies didn't know how to hire YouTube sales specialists. I'm curious to know, let's just start there. What is a YouTube sales specialist?
It's someone who has the context and background of specifically getting brands integrated and involved in YouTube creators' content. And I think it came down from just being in the space and seeing that it felt like every agency was either treating YouTube creators like influencers that were doing affiliate deals or UGC deals or just straight performance-oriented partnerships, or they were trying to turn them into like media, where it was like programmatic spend moving over into YouTube and let's create these dynamically inserted ads and just be able to allocate tens of millions of dollars across the YouTube space. And I felt there was a space to do something in the middle where we don't sell media and we don't sell influencers, we sell shows.
Yeah.
And the creators that we work with are filmmakers and directors and talent in these shows. It allows us to create an ecosystem in a world where brands can get involved and basically create their own shows without having to have the in-house production capabilities to do that on their owned and operated channels.
Yeah, that's really, really smart. So basically, Hollywood was getting it wrong. They don't understand how to work with YouTubers. Sounds like they don't really understand much about YouTube outside of a standard media buy. What would you say the fundamental structure of a deal that you're doing looks like?
I mean, to be honest, it's not probably too different from regular brand partnerships. I think it's just what the brand is getting out of it. So usually we're taking a series that a creator of ours wants to make to the market. But, maybe traditionally we would go to a streaming platform or a studio and say, hey, we have this 6-episode series we want to make. Can you please greenlight it and let us put it on air? Now we're taking that 6-episode series and taking it to a brand and saying, do you want to get involved in this way? Here's how we think you guys can get involved in the story, so that you're not just a 60-second interruption in the middle of this video, but you're actually integrated into what's making this adventure possible for our creators. That changes the sales process quite a bit. we're almost like creatively pitching. And then sometimes we're doing that in response to an RFP. So we might see from an RFP that they want ideas that look a certain type of way. And then we'll work with our creators to think about, are there any existing briefs that we have that kind of feel aligned with this? Or is this an opportunity that we want to brainstorm unique, bespoke ideas for this brand? And so again, it allows those brands to get involved in a way that's not just, hey, we're going to create an ad and boost it with paid media. It also isn't like, hey, let's go become an entire production company, which a lot of brands are doing right now, hiring their own producers and their own studios and whatever, because that's also a tremendous lift for a very unclear ROI. So we like to think of ourselves as a middle ground where creators offer a lot of the things that used to be fragmented across a studio and a director and an endorsement athlete and whatever, all in one. So a brand can kind of check a bunch of boxes through working with a creator in one way.
Yeah, I think that is so smart and so interesting. I have 1,000 questions. Is there exclusivity? Are you like, okay, you're going to be the one and only brand that we partner with? Or are you playing the game of, we're producing this series. Do you want to be the official drink partner and you can be the official sunglasses partner? What does that look like?
Today, the space is so green that just getting a brand involved in these sorts of videos is a mountain of education every single time. And luckily, we have a couple brands that we've done this a few times with, so then we don't have to re-educate them every time from scratch. But going out into the market very much is a challenge because brands are split across having a media function where they buy media. They have growth or performance function that, does performance ads. And then they usually have like a social function, which is like their own social media channels. And technically, we have no idea which one of those three would want to create content with a creator long form on YouTube. And sometimes none of those three departments are thinking about it. Largely something that I think is broken with the world of marketing is that these departments are, one, very isolated at the highest levels. They don't have great communication in between them. And the world of marketing doesn't necessarily look like it should be siloed across those three verticals. So yeah, I think that makes it a lot harder for us. But to answer your question more specifically, it depends. Like, we'd love to be in a place where three brands can coexist inside of a series and all three feel like it's a win, which allows us to give it to them for a better rate because we have three partners that are shared across the production budget. And also, I think our audience can be a little bit happier because it doesn't feel like you're being sold to on every left turn because things are placed where they should be. Today, it's a lot more of giving exclusive access to a brand or having a title brand that has the most amount of promotion with a secondary brand that has a smaller tier level of exposure inside of the series.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the silo marketing team issue because as a lifelong head of social is what I call myself, just like forever social media marketing girly. Once you're you can't get out of the role because the industry is just not moving fast enough.
Yeah.
So I just find myself back there constantly. But it's true. I've made the most money for brands when I'm partnering directly with my paid team and I'm partnering with the full organization, not even just marketing. And so I'm curious to know when you're structuring these deals or when you have a deal and you're now working internally, are social cut downs something that are in negotiation? Are you giving them content and they're doing cut down? How does that investment for being a part of this show, something that a brand typically makes full funnel, or maybe they don't?
Or they don't, I think, is sometimes like kryptonite for a lot of these brands is sometimes they get in their own way.
Yeah.
We try to be the one-stop shop in saying that, of course, we can create social cut downs. We can give you licensing rights on this content so that you can use it for your own ads. You can, use it for whatever purpose you want. All of that's always on the table. Sometimes the department inside of a company that we're doing this with isn't the social department. And then they're like, that's our social team's responsibility. And we're not going to go through the stakeholders of getting them on board. And that's just going to create more cooks in the kitchen. So then they don't do it. And then also, outside of even that being inside of a department at a company, it's oftentimes with a creative agency or a media agency or an influencer agency or all three that the brand is working with. So then we're not even interacting with the brand because we're interacting with the middlemen agencies. And then all three of those agencies have their own performance KPIs that they're trying to make sure that they hit, and then their own other clients that they're trying to service amongst all of this. So I think this web of complexity is, I think, what makes it hard for marketers to do their jobs and makes it hard for creators to get the right brands on their videos and do a good job at delivering really good campaigns and results for brands, because I think navigating in this bureaucratic mess is often very tricky and challenging.
Absolutely. Lately, the last several clients I've had, unintentionally, I've ended up coming in to build a program for creator specifically. And my scope is just creator, no social. And then something comes up where it's like, hey, can you just take a look at this social strategy? And of course, I say yes. And then I look at the social strategy. I don't poke holes in it, but I just say, okay, this is what I would think about differently, or this is how I would approach it differently. And very long story short, every time it results in me getting rid of the agency and bringing social in-house. And as soon as I bring social in-house, we double, triple, quadruple social instantaneously. And I have this theory. It's that social is too big of a job to be managed externally. There's just too much going on internally, too much going on online, and social is always on, that you can't outsource it well. And so I'm curious to hear from you, working with third-party partners, working directly with brands, what is the ideal structure look like for you and your clients?
I almost want to ask you first, for you on social, and also, do you categorize creator partnerships inside of social?
I think that they have to work hand in hand together to be effective. And so the way that I approach it always is I have a social strategy, and my social strategy informs what we ask of creators. So we are being able to stay on brand. We're able to actually create content that's going to support the business by way of people who can say it in their own way, educate our consumers, entertain them, create trust for us, and actually hit on the business points that are going to drive revenue. A really good example is when I started working at Aloe Yoga, it was just Aloe Yoga. There was no Aloe Men. Aloe was not fashion yet. What did we do? We started seeding fashion girlies. We started seeding Pilates girlies. We started seeding runners. And we got really specific with creators on how we wanted to expand our business so that it kind of just naturally happened. And that's how I leverage social and creator together. I think that one strategy has to inform the other because they're literally built for each other.
And as the owned and operated content that Aloe is making falls under social in that regard. And then I'm assuming there was a media department that would buy or create ads that would run on YouTube or television or wherever else.
So we had there was performance marketing and there was brand marketing. Yeah. It was the largest marketing function in terms of companies I've ever worked for, fully staffed on both sides.
Wait, sorry, and between brand marketing and performance marketing, social is its own island, or social falls underneath one of those?
I was on the brand marketing side, but I actually reported into the CEO, Danny Harris. And I partnered really tight with performance, and same thing with my influencer counterparts, because brand feeding us messaging, what's important. And then we had to operate with performance to be like, okay, how am I tagging everything so that you guys can tell us what's working? Because in organic social, it's whack-a-mole all day long. I don't have time or a big enough team to be looking at every single piece of content that we're putting out and seeing what's hitting. But there are people on the performance side of the business who are doing that, and then they're studying the data. And so we would work with performance to tag everything the way that they needed it to be tagged so that they could give us actionable insights. And same thing with influencer.
That makes sense. I think that also the challenging thing within the landscape is that these social platforms have changed over the last 5 years.
It's crazy.
Where it used to be so much more around, like, you see the content from who you follow. They were much more around social networks and infrastructure. And then now they're completely their own entertainment platforms that are serving us interest-based media. And that happened while the internal structure of most of these companies stayed the exact same, despite the fact that, like, what was social and these social departments is actually now technically an internal production media house. It's interesting to hear you say that social should always be brought in-house, or if it's too important of a function. I think it also depends on the size of the company.
Yeah.
I don't always think creator needs to be brought in-house. I think there's some really awesome brands like Shopify that do it in-house and just rock it and do an incredible job. But then I think there are others who it just doesn't come as naturally, or they have so many other functions, or they want to experiment with it and they just don't have the know-how?
I think that's the most important call out because I've been trying to figure out what is the thing that makes someone good at social. I've worked with at least 100 people now, teaching them my process of how to run social for brands. And there are just some people who just get it, and there are people who don't get it. And after 9 months of working at it, it starts working, but still intrinsically, they just don't get it. And I'm like, what is that? Is it like click into online culture that you're either just tapped in or you're not? Can you pick up slang easily or you can't? Is it aesthetic? But then there are brands, their whole aesthetic is ugly. So I'm really trying to figure out what is that thing that makes someone good and get it. But you said that it's a matter of having the right people who just get it. If you have one person who just gets it, that person single-handedly can do better than an agency that is making you Canva templates and getting their information from other Canva template accounts online talking about February trends. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You do need someone with decision-making power inside of an organization that could at least get the momentum started in the right way. There are a lot of examples of people who are good champions inside of organizations without any decision-making power who get it, but have their hands tied. And as employees of a Fortune 500 company are not incentivized to make meaningful change inside of their organization. They're incentivized to appease their boss, try to get a raise, be home at 5 to spend time with their kids. And so I do think, unfortunately, sometimes it comes from the fact of until some of the decision makers in the C-suite of these companies don't get with it and set the right intention from the outgate. There's a lady named Jessica who just became the head of global brand and communications at General Motors, and she came from YouTube. And what she's been able to do from being in a position of seniority and with real decision-making power for General Motors has been through the activations that they've had in the creator economy. If you look at the YouTube page for General Motors and rewind back a year of what it used to look like, is like night and day. So you can see when someone can get in there with the right, I know how to do this and I have the right relationships and I get it, they can, deploy an army to go execute. But it's really hard for someone to be a social media manager at an independent brand and then be screaming to their CMO for budget and resources and understanding. But that person is probably on a 3-year shelf life at that company anyway and is only trying to not get fired. And they're not incentivized to take a swing on the new hot thing. They're incentivized to go buy a programmatic ad slot on Monday Night Football because that's what their predecessor did. And it kept them around for a pretty long time. And so I think people who are a bit more cavalier and bold need to get into decision-making power roles so that they can deploy these strategies at large, which I think is starting to happen, which is why I think everyone in this space is so excited.
Yeah, completely agree. You can tell everything has shifted and is always shifting in social, from algorithms to now even the way that people talk about social online. It's so different. We're starting to acknowledge that it is a real role and that's not
to be honest, I don't even refer to it as social anymore.
Right.
I think of social more like I would say what I think of as influencers. And I'm going to sponsor this person so that when they post, I can track their conversions and I can be like, did that work, ROI positive or not? But to me, that's a growth function.
Right.
So even in the two worlds of performance and brand, I would say for me, creator falls much more on brand than it does on performance. But what we used to consider, what is considered social in my mind, is more performance oriented. Like your work with Aloe is let's go get the fitness girlies to wear Aloe and post about it. And you're tracking, did that work directly as a one-to-one function?
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely a space for that and it's effective. There's some brands like Gymshark who have legitimately built themselves on that strategy.
Day one.
Yeah. And owned it at a time where that was the shit. But I think now with creator, we're getting into a place where it's a little bit less one-to-one. It's less like, hey, YouTuber, you make this video and then tomorrow we're going to get more sales than what we just paid you. It's a little bit more around how do you insert yourself into culture and get people in the space to think about you and talk about you and become aware of your existence. And that's a brand function. That's not necessarily a performance function or even sometimes a marketing function.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I have been saying since I left Aloe 5 years ago, I don't think social should be on anyone's org. I think it should be its own org. And I think social and influencers should be their own separate function because they plug into brand and performance equal parts. But then they also plug into product and they plug into customer service because what happens when someone posts online? People come out of the woodworks and unrelated. It's like, oh, I ordered that and it never came. And it's like, now we need customer service here, triaging, making that person happy, servicing our customers. And I think that the best brands understand that. But the ones who are only going to treat it like it's just to post a little something online, there's so much that they're missing out on.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's the right take.
I'm curious to know, you're talking about performance. What are key performance indicators that you guys are looking at in the shows that you're making to know that, okay, we're actually delivering value? Or I guess second part of the question is, what are people wanting to see in terms of KPIs?
Yeah, I think in terms of what people are interested in seeing, I think we tried to plug into the traditional KPIs that brands are used to, like acknowledging or working towards, which often for us is like CPM is the number one. Like, can we get this brand a cheaper CPM inside of this video where their product is highlighted in a larger way and people are choosing to watch this video versus the CPM that they get either on programmatic television or on a YouTube media buy where it's skippable. Inherently, they didn't choose to watch it. It's interrupting a pattern that they're watching online and they're forced to watch it and then they're going to skip it anyway. Can we achieve a lower CPM than that? And if so, then it should feel like a no-brainer because we're giving someone a very dedicated moment for less money. And so I think when we try to achieve that, then the brands can kind of take a sigh of relief and everything from there seems like a net positive for them. We've started to get into working with some more sophisticated partners around like brand lift studies and some more direct response type of KPIs as well. We always have links in the descriptions that drive traffic and we track those also. But again, it's a lot more of a, what is the overall association to this brand and how does that change? We did a campaign with Pizza Hut and Iraq where we broke a Guinness World Record for the world's largest pizza. And we were nominated for a Cannes Lions Award. The footage ended up getting used in Pizza Hut's Super Bowl commercial. But that came from the brand really sharing with us, like, we want to be cool with young men from a briefing standpoint. That was about as sophisticated as it was. It was like, how do we become cooler with young men? And, we collaboratively with, and also with their army of agencies, came up with this idea and fleshed it out, built it out, produced the thing, figured out how we were going to do it, figured out how we were going to get news to write about it, figured out how we were going to get influencers to show up and make social posts about it. And that ended up being super, super successful. And they were able to attribute a lot of earned media value and all the things that they needed and press publication acknowledgements. And so I think that was an example of it going really, really well. But I think it came from us understanding from a first principles perspective of like, okay, we just need to make you cool with young men. We can think about how to achieve these metrics, but really what we're trying, that for us is much more understandable than some of the more quantitative things that sit on a report that most of the time I think are kind of BS anyway. Not always, and there's always like, we try to bring it back to that, but for us, it's always coming from the place of culture standpoint. What is this brand trying to achieve and how do we start it there?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations because that's sick. And I feel like that is the goal, right? Of like, oh, it started on YouTube and now it's airing on Super Bowl. That's really kind of, I think, pipe dream for a lot of creators. It's interesting that you say that though, because at Aloe, my only KPI was to make the brand cool. That was it. We're not going to talk about budget. He's like, I don't care. You don't have to show me reporting. He's like, just make my brand cool. I want to be it girl. I want to be street style. I want to be fashion. I want to be men's performance. I want to be rugged men's performance. And I was like, bet. Go. Take away the marketing language. What's the ethos you're trying to create here?
Yeah, there's brands like that. There's brands like Shopify that have enormous budgets and they can play a little bit more in that space, or Pizza Hut, obviously. I think for the brand that doesn't have like you money and isn't just able to be like, I want to be the coolest thing in the world, any means possible, go after and get it. And they're counting their dollars and they're making sure everything's ROI positive. I think there's definitely validity in wanting to make sure that your dollar is going somewhere and the best value of your dollar is being realized. I think there's an unfortunate truth in all of marketing that 50% of your budget isn't working, but you just don't know which 50% it is that isn't working. So I think that unfortunately in marketing, even previous to the creator economy, measurement has always been a struggle and it's always been inflated and it's always been a little bit of fugazi. So I think that's not new and it shouldn't surprise any marketer that measurement is a challenge. But I do think measurement needs to change in a world where attention has changed and media consumption has changed. We can all agree on those sorts of things. Measurement also changes on a time horizon. If you want to know, was your, ad successful this week or was this creator campaign successful this week? Was it ROI positive right now? It's a lot harder than like, are these efforts of ours in this new direction of creator going to be successful over the time horizon of a year? I think allows you to think about measurement and ROI much differently. And so another thing talking about measurement, I think, is that brands look at it from the wrong time horizon. They look at it as, I pay you $100,000 for this post, therefore I need to make at least $101,000 tomorrow or this didn't work. And I
Right.
think that's, again, just like the wrong way of thinking about it.
Yeah, that's like the tale as old as time, like performance versus organic. It's not just dollars in, dollars out. It's dollars in, and who knows how long it's going to take to pop, but then when it does, you will get your money back. And it's not something that there are creators, especially now, speaking of how algorithms has changed, everything has become so formulaic. There are creators who have trained their audiences to buy immediately. And then there are creators who it takes time to build that trust. A lot of brands want to see an immediate return. And I agree with you that that's just not realistic. And that's kind of where I think social and influencer have to stay plugged into brand, because brand has that longer horizon period.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear in a tactical way. Let's think about what you do. A brand comes to you, let's say they have $200,000 to spend and they want to implement a show by Q3. Is that enough money? Is that enough time? What's the playbook? How are we getting this off the ground?
The first question I'd be asking is, what does the rest of their marketing look like? And should they be allocating $200,000 to a show at all? What I would look at is that and what other initiatives are going on, what other promos there are going on. From a timeline perspective, obviously creators work incredibly fast. So we're sitting here today, I think April 25th or something. In order to get a show out by, or the first episode of a show out by June is completely possible. That's like a month away.
Yeah.
That's nuts, depending on what the production and the concept of the show is. But creators can move very quickly. What we're usually looking at is to try and agree on a creative concept and then figure out with a creator, how is this brand going to be weaved into this story? That process can happen very quickly, but it's a little bit like blind dating and matchmaking. So sometimes if your brand is ugly, the matchmaking is harder, right? If you're Aloe Yoga, that's every creator, it wants to date you because you're the hot girl in town. And so I think there are brands that have it easier for themselves, and there's some brands that I think have it more challenging
What a good analogy,
times.
by the way. So iconic. Everyone will get it.
And someone has a good personality, and sometimes maybe you're a little bit uglier on the outside. And I think, again, that's just the thing. And sometimes creators, similarly, maybe their content is a format that makes it very hard for them to weave in a brand. And sometimes creators have formats that are just so brand friendly. We have a creator on our roster. His name's Marco Terzo, and he is an art and DIY creator who has customized shoes and given them to rappers and athletes, did a custom skateboard for Tony Hawk, and basically can take anything and turn it into an incredible piece of art. And sometimes when we can't figure out what he should do with a brand, he's just like, let me customize art and deliver it to their HQ. And every brand is like, what a cool thing. We get to show off our company culture and da-da-da-da. And we're like, wow, his format makes it really easy for him and this brand to interface together.
Yeah.
It's almost like having a cool party trick. You can go anywhere and you can kind of chameleon into your social environment. And then other creators are so rigid in their skill set and their format and their creativity that it makes it very hard to have them interact with a certain brand, because if it just doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. So I do think that ends up becoming work for us as the partner in, being the aunt that's setting you up on the date and has to know both sides and has to know, are these people going to be compatible, or else we're wasting our time. And that's, sometimes what I feel like these larger agencies, they're just thinking about it from a standpoint of, oh, this is a slot. This is a brand plus slot equal money, equal commission. So therefore equal good. And I think we're trying to be like, no, that's not always the case. This is like a relationship that matters, makes a bigger splash. And so, trying to be a little bit more respectful about how we approach it.
Talk to me more about that creative process of like, okay, we have a concept now. We're going to go back to the brand or the agency. Most of the time, are they on board? Are they trying to collaborate with the creator? When the creator, let's say they are trying to collaborate, is the creator open to collaborating with them? Are we in a room together? Are we on a call together? Or is it like working in silo? I'm so curious.
I would say the majority of the time, it's not an easy process and it's not frictionless. The times where it works really well is because we have someone like a Jessica or someone that's a brand leader inside of these organizations that has decision-making power, that they're involved. And we know that if they like something, they can get approval process for it. So we're also not getting excited about an opportunity in a room and then it never goes anywhere. Most of the time, we're being brought a brief from a brand who has worked on that brief for months, taken it to their creative agency. The creative agency's taken it to the influencer agency. The influencer agencies maybe ran it by the media agency. And then they've spent 6 months being like, is this the right brief? And meanwhile, in those 6 months, no creators ever looked at it. They've never talked to a creator about what this should look like. And then they bring it to the creator and say, hey, we're bringing this to you. What do you think of this? We're super excited. Would love to collaborate with you on it. And then if we poke at it and go, well, could this concept be a little this way? They go, no, because that's someone at the creative agency came up with that and got paid a pretty penny to come up and pitch that idea in a boardroom. Oftentimes what we find is that it's very rigid. And so unfortunately, I would say, 90% of the opportunities we don't do that we see. They're far too rigid. Or we have to go, this is not for us. Have you guys seen our videos? This doesn't look anything like this. And then, the times where we do get to successfully do a partnership with a brand, which I thankfully is often enough that we can make a living out of it, is often where we have an idea that we believe in, and then we take it out into the market and we get a brand that through serendipity also is aligned from upcoming promotion that they have. So again, maybe I'll use the Pizza Hut example. We had the idea for breaking the Guinness World Record for the world's largest pizza. We thought that was a standalone good idea. And so we went out into the market and said, are there any pizza brands that want to get involved in this? And coincidentally, after we signed an NDA, we were told that Pizza Hut was bringing back their big New Yorker pizza. And it was the whole thing around the marketing around it was supposed to be that it's the biggest pizza they've ever had and they're bringing it back. And we were like, oh, well, there you go.
Fit. Perfect.
Again, kind of like dating, you put yourself out there a little bit and you see that, oh my God, someone has the same weird quirk that I have or also likes this weird thing that I like. And so I think, again, it was kind of like that. It was putting ourselves out there and being bold enough to go out to the market with a crazy idea and then finding, oh my God, this brand was waiting for a cool idea and they were looking and searching for what they were going to do for this. So I think, anyway, that's what kind of made it work. And then we sat down from the ground floor and fleshed that idea into like how to make it possible, how to make it feasible, how to eliminate food waste, how do we tell the story? All of that became a team effort across probably 3 to 4 different agencies and several months of work.
Okay. And going back to the Pizza Hut example, just knowing that was like probably not me speaking for you and making guesses about your business, but like if I had to guess, that's probably one of your best partnerships. At what phase did they decide they wanted to air it in Super Bowl? Before it was live, after if it was live? Did you know in the upfront it was going that far?
No, we didn't know. It was never discussed previously if it was going to go into a Super Bowl commercial. We knew that they were planning on buying one or that they had already purchased one, but they needed an asset for it. So I think we started to learn more about that as the thing was coming to life. But I think they saw the pizza and then they saw the footage and they were like, this is awesome. We're going to put this in a Super Bowl commercial. So I think for them it happened because the thing went so well and then they saw it and they saw the footage and they're like, this is iconic. That's nuts.
I mean, that is iconic. And I think that is a testament to any brand operators who are listening. Trust creators. Like, we get it. We get that you've spent 6 months on a brief. It's probably not a good use of anyone's time. Spending 6 months on a brief? Are you kidding? Cap it at 6 hours. That's crazy. But then on top of that, you're outsourcing to creators for their unique point of view. Because they've done something, they've influenced people, they've grown audiences and communities. And if you want to tap into that and actually benefit off of them, you just have to trust them.
Yeah, I think with an asterisk of which ones you trust and being careful, because I totally get it. If I wear my brand hat and I think about, if they go to the wrong creator and they say, here's my RFP, I want to be cool with young men. There are creators out there, probably the overwhelming majority of creators out there, don't know how to operate a brand. They don't know how to operate a small Shopify store, let alone operate multi-million-dollar public company. And so I think that there are a lot of creators out there who won't be able to speak that language and understand business outcomes. Some can really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like Eric is a fully functional and qualified CMO at a company if he really wanted to be. He's choosing to use that CMO brain of his to make one of the fastest growing, largest YouTube channels in the world. But he could do both if he chose to leave YouTube tomorrow. And so when he's around CMOs and marketers, they're like, whoa, you get it. okay, and you've also been a brand owner. You've also started companies and needed to market it out into the world. So I think for brands, it's about understanding like no two creators are the same. In the same way that maybe no two creative agencies are the same. You can go find like boutique creative agency in a small town, and you can find, the McCains of the world that are like the largest that come. And the people inside of these orgs are also different. Similarly, like a creator is not a one-person show. They're oftentimes met with, creative directors and producers and managers or CEOs who come in with them and are able to add layers of sophistication and storytelling with them. So I think also about understanding your, maybe to continue using the dating analogy, is like you're marrying into a family,
Yeah.
and by marrying the person, you marry into their team. And there's a lot of creators out there who can be really great, but if you're operating with a crap manager who just wants to charge you the most amount of money and isn't collaborative and thinking about your business outcomes, it's kind of like having a really mean mother-in-law. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of that feeling, I think. So just understanding that it's a lot more nuanced and these things are not so black and white.
Yeah, I think that is a good call out. And I think that as somebody who's been on all sides of the business now, as head of social, head of influencer, head of being my own creator, you can feel when the person on the other end of the line is in it for the money. You can feel when the other person is deeply passionate and they just want to work with you. You can tell when there's a vibe. That's why I think this dating analogy is really, really smart. I want to switch gears a little bit. You started your career at Shopify, and you said that that experience taught you how e-commerce managers think about growth. Has that informed how you structure your deals? Does that inform how you think about how the brands you're partnering with are thinking? How does that play into what you're doing today?
Yeah, so my role at Shopify was interfacing with a lot of the biggest merchants that were on the platform and biggest stores that were on the platform. And as my role within sales is just to find more brands that could come on and become like on our enterprise plan. I think what that role and experience gave me was a deep empathy for what it means to be merchant and a brand, and also exposed me to this like interesting size of brand that was not the Fortune 500 business, but it also wasn't the small mom and pop shop. They were doing millions of dollars of revenue, but they still didn't have these like you money marketing spends that they could like just go out and spend money into oblivion. So I started to see really interesting marketing tactics. Like Gymshark was a great company that was early days Shopify, Movement watches, like everyone was Liquid IV. These brands were like early Shopify brands and were able to become $100 million plus businesses because they had figured out some things that had worked for them and then been able to really dial the gas in on those things and make those things really work. So I think it just gave me empathy for like that marketing is not about who can outspend who, but it's really creativity. And I think that just gave me a lot of encouragement around the space and it should give anyone watching encouraging feelings because it means that you're only as good as your idea. And now the like barriers to entry and what it means to play is even less and less and less. Now you don't even need to like buy media. These platforms are just giving you the ability to have something go viral because your idea was really good. And that has evened the playing field so much for the Shopify brand that wants to compete with Nestle because they just know how the shit works better than the people and the teams at Nestle. And it's created a really great M&A ecosystem for founders. But anyway, I think my experience at Shopify just laid this out for me and showed it to me.
That's awesome. So you've posted content breaking down what brands do really well and what brands don't without naming any brand names. What do you think is the pattern you see in YouTube creator partnerships that really sets something apart from being good versus bad?
Definitely the behavior of bringing a brief to a creator way too late, not getting them involved early enough in the process is a very common mistake I see. I think the limited time horizon on like calculating ROI is really crucial mistake that a lot of brands make. Brands often go to creators again with this mindset of like, I'm going to pay you this money and I want this video to be made and I'm going to be really counting the money that comes in directly correlated to this video. And they expect that a creator is going to introduce a brand to their audience, educate them on why that brand is better than alternatives, and then drive conversions to that product or service in a 10-minute video with like a 1-minute integration in it. And it's such an almost impossible feat to do that it immediately sets creators up to fail. And then the brand goes, I guess creator doesn't work. And then they move on. And so
Yeah.
I think also realizing that if you go to a creator And right now, creators are conditioned to believe that brands are going to work with them once and then never again, because that's the experience they've had. Probably very similar to dating. It's like you keep going on first dates and you never get a second date. And then you're like, okay, the next time I go, I'm going to probably try to split the bill because I know I'm not getting a second date. So I don't even care how good I look on this date. That's how creators are acting, where they try to squeeze the most amount of money out of deal one. They don't think they're getting a second date. So they're like, all right, I'm just going to ask for the most amount I can and give you the very least that I can out of this, because you're not going to work with me anyway, because you're not going to think this is going to work because you're viewing it on the wrong metrics. So I'm going to be very stern in my negotiation with you. Whereas I think if brands could do some initial testing to see what works, but then when you find something that works, to be able to give a creator the stability and the predictable revenue of like, hey, we're going to work with you across a year. Let's build out a roadmap of how you're going to introduce us to your audience throughout a year and get us to become synonymous with this character in your videos. That's a much longer time horizon of ROI. And I bet you that creators would give a fat discount on what it costs to work with them if they just knew that they had that stability with a partner over the course of a year, rather than needing to feel like I need to squeeze the juice for what it's worth on day one.
Yeah, agree. And to build on what you're saying, I think we live in the most saturated time ever. You can't even go to the gas station without hearing an ad for who knows what blaring. I'm like, where is that coming from? You know,
Yeah.
we're being infiltrated with ads. We're being infiltrated with creators who are not getting paid, who are getting paid. It's just that's the landscape now. And so even taking out everything that you just said into account, which by the way is so relevant, and I couldn't agree more with any of it. Taking that aside, think about the landscape. It's just different now. You have to, I think they said like the rule of 3 turned into the rule of 7, and the rule of 7 is now the rule of 21. It's like someone has to be exposed to something 21 times now before you're even in their sphere of consciousness. So why would a creator be able to drive sales from one video when that's probably one out of 10 things they're posting in a single week, and then out of 360 things that someone is seeing in a single day? The math is just not mathing. So if brands are going to be so tied to being math driven and performance based, like just do that basic math and know that it's not going to work. You're setting everyone up for failure.
Yeah.
So I completely agree.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that they're used to Meta and Google and the sophisticated ad platforms that they've built being able to show pretty numbers around attribution to them that make them feel like, oh, when I've done it on these platforms, I'm able to see who's bought from me that's attributed to them seeing an ad. So that makes me feel like that's doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And that yet doesn't fully exist on Creator. It's getting there now with some tagging and some retargeting, but those measurement tools are still a little bit more green. So I think we're getting there. But then, on this other side, like brands are pissing away money on television and product placement in Netflix movies.
Right.
That for a fraction of that, from a view-to-view basis on YouTube, that money would go so much further, but they think that there's air of premiumness on television for like an inch of the level of breadth that the integration could actually have.
Yeah. I think the industry has kind of lost the plot. So I'm with you on all of this. I'm curious to know, in terms of YouTube, are you guys using, I know they just rolled out shopping. Are you guys using anything like that? Or would you have any apprehension to having like shoppable videos?
I don't think our creators would have apprehension to having shoppable videos. We've had the shopping shelf for a while. YouTube also has released their dibs function, which is dynamically integrated ad segments, brand segments, dibs. And some of our creators are on the beta for it. So we haven't published a video with it. I'm largely bullish on what this will mean for the creator economy.
Just to make sure, is dibs where you can like swap in and out who the advertiser is?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And so what's your point of view?
Yeah, it's basically so that creators can create their own like mid-roll ads inside of a YouTube video and then be able to dynamically introduce new ones and take brands out. My perspective is that I think it's a commodity product for commodity creators. So I think it's going to be macro good for the creator economy because it will bring a lot more money from traditional media spends and allow brands to take programmatic television budgets and spend it on YouTube in a scaled way. I don't think it'll make too big of a difference for our creators because they're already at the top 1% of channels. It's just creating more skippable ads. right? Because whether or not YouTube chooses to make these dibs skippable, it's going to be an interruption to the content so that you can watch an ad that was just created by the creator rather than created by some Hollywood production company. But it's still inherently interruptive to the experience of watching the video
Right.
so that you can watch an ad.
Right.
I think where our creators and where we try to slot ourselves is in saying brands should earn attention and not just always pay to interrupt attention. And what a more beautiful world marketing could be if it wasn't just like, hey, look at this thing. Hey, look at this thing. Hey, I'll pay to look at this thing. But it was a little bit more about brands being storytellers and making us think that they're cool because they do cool things and
adding value
And
into
add
people's
value, yeah,
lives in some
exactly.
capacity. Yeah, even just knowing this show was brought to you in sponsorship by X. It's like, well, if you really love this show, like thank goodness for X because we wouldn't have it without that person.
Yeah. Again, always easier for the sexy brand. Like, everyone's like, well, we're not Red Bull. We can't send a guy from space or, get someone to ride the biggest wave ever. Or we're not Nike. We can't just sponsor the coolest athlete, tell their story. And I think there's a total empathy. Not every brand is as easy to market as others, but there's always a corner of the internet where any business could be the coolest thing in the world.
I agree. I think it just comes down to creative ingenuity. And this is what it comes back to is like having that right person who can be creative and just let it rip instead of their creativity being stifled or having someone who's just ultimately not creative in a creative role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
talking about dibs, it sounds like that would actually make creator marketing a bit more programmatic for brands. Do you see that being more attractive in terms of deal negotiation, or does it not matter?
It's attractive. It's just good net positive for us because more money comes into the creator economy. That's great. And our creators will use it and we'll make money through that. I mean, by the way, despite the fact that we sell shows, we still do 30-second integrations into our videos.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we'll do both because if we spent all of our time trying to convince brands to make shows with us, we would starve. And there's far more brands that are like, no, I just want the 60-second thing. And we're like, okay, fine, take the 60-second thing.
Mhm.
But when we can, we focus on working with creators who have the opportunity of selling larger shows. And we only work with creators who have that potential inside of them. I think that Dibs will bring in more money to the creator economy. And I think there's a lot of potential branches that it could go down. I think creators might even use it to just promote their own things through things that they can swap out for themselves because it creates programmatic inventory inside of their own videos. The other thing that's really nice is brands will be able to tag people who view that and retarget them with other Google ad products. So I think it will also create more of this attribution narrative. It will strengthen that attribution narrative and it will allow brands to say, no, they watched that YouTube video and then bought 2 months later after they saw another 2 ads from us on Google AdWords. So therefore we can originate it as a creator thing. And then all of a sudden, so then I think that'll be good for creators. My areas of curiosity around it are, I'm not sure how it will affect YouTube's mid-rolls. I have no idea is this just going to be more mid-rolls for the viewers or interruptive ads for the viewers, some produced by Hollywood production companies and some produced by the creator. I have no idea. I think that could be a net negative for the consumer. I think the other thing is YouTube going to take a cut from these brand partnerships?
For sure. I would absolutely bet yes.
And what does that look like? And our creators going to be like, is that even worth it for us? Those sorts of questions I think come up. Also, as a management or broker arm with these creators, we're looking at this saying, okay, well, if that one video had one slot and we would sell that one slot and it'd be evergreen forever, now we have to sell one brand on that video. What happens when that brand expires and then another brand comes in it and then another brand comes in it? Does that mean we have to convince 4 brands to be on one video? That's 4 times the sales efforts for one video, where you're not necessarily getting more money. You're just basically capping everyone at a CPM and then swapping them when their budget runs out. So it could also end up becoming a lot more operational lift and overhead for the same or similar benefit.
That's a lot to think about, but it sounds like generally things are exciting in the name of progression in the industry in
Never
terms
been more
of
exciting.
creator economy.
Yeah.
I feel like constantly get reverted back to social media marketer because the industry is just not moving fast enough. this is one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, this feels like a big win. This feels like something that's going to help us graduate to the next level.
I think YouTube does God's work in helping creators, and there's probably no platform that I think creates with that same level of intention for the creators on their platform. So hopefully, this can really move the puck in the right direction. You know, what I'd love to see in addition to this is more of YouTube incentivizing their team to get the biggest brands that spend money on YouTube media to start working directly with their creators, which I think using this as their like more macro play, and then creating an opportunity for the top 1% of creators on YouTube to also create things that look more like shows that can, you know, win an Emmy one day or have a premium brand partner fund it. Because I know that there's a lot of requests coming from the brands on that are top YouTube partners for these sorts of things. And I think YouTube is championing them. There's a lot of creators now that even YouTube is supporting in their search for an Emmy. So fingers crossed, but I think the momentum is in the right direction.
I agree. It feels like the industry is moving in that direction. Speaking of creators, I'm curious to learn from you. You position yourself as the infrastructure of creators, but not the talent.
Mhm.
However, I discovered you through your video content, and you have 80,000 followers just across LinkedIn and Instagram alone. Why don't you consider yourself publicly a creator?
Good question. Why don't I consider myself publicly a creator? Just because I don't think I'm good at it. Like, I think I'm good at being an operator. When I look in the mirror, I go, man, like I have a lot of confidence in myself as an operator. I have a lot of confidence in myself as an entrepreneur. I don't have a lot of confidence in myself as a content creator.
I'm floored. Give me just 1 second to pick my job off the floor because what do you mean? You're such a good storyteller. You are vulnerable. You share and talk about real things that I think people struggle to talk about. You talk about being a dad. You talk about, immigrating. You talk about your family life. You talk about being a husband and the struggles that you're facing. You are nailing hooks. Your editing style is so good. And bro, you literally have almost 100,000 followers. So what do you mean?
It's probably just honestly from, I appreciate all that. I should have you as my hype girl more often. I guess like I spend all my days working with, these creators who have tens of millions of followers on long form YouTube videos. They're getting billions of views a year. And I look at the labor that they put into that art. And I'm like, yeah, I made a 90-second video where I was like vulnerable to camera. Don't get me wrong. I'm proud of myself. I think that's good work. And I think for the creators that's doing that out there, I don't mean to diminish it. But the thing I walk out of my house with confidence that I'm like the best in the world at is being an operator and being an entrepreneur. But when I see Thomas Bragg from Yes Theory and what he does for a video and like a 90-minute feature film about telling a vulnerable story about going to a third world country and finding a story about humanity, or like Eric operating like a set of 30 people to create something that, could be on MTV. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not a content creator. I like get humbled real quick. Yeah, even I say that I'm not a creator in front of my creator clients, and they hype me up in a similar way. And I think compared to the average operator, I think that's also maybe what's made me good at my role is compared to the average entrepreneur and operator, I think I'm more creative. And then compared to the average creative, I'm more operational. So I think it's allowed me to have success building a career as like a translator between these two worlds. And hopefully I can consider myself more of a content creator someday.
What's it going to take for you to be like, yeah, no, I'm a creator?
I think-
100,000 followers? Like, what is it?
No, I don't think of it in the sense of followers. I think about it in the sense of what I'm making is artistic and pieces of work that I can stand behind and be like, this can compete with what's the best out there. And I still don't feel that way. I still don't have that confidence. I know that, if I'm making if I'm doing like a podcast episode or I'm providing business knowledge, I can't put that up beside Colin and Samir and be like, is that better? Because it's not even close. Or I'm like if I make short form videos, I can't put that up against OMG Adrian and be like, is this better than what he's doing? It's not even close. I'm really lucky that I get to ask those guys for advice and I get to try. And that's the beauty of content creation is like you get to try and, see where things go. And it's been really encouraging. I've had brand deals and I would never thought I would have a brand deal. And my creators laugh when I get a brand deal. Like, dude, that's insane that you're like now at this point where you can get your own brand deals. So anyway, it's all been very encouraging and I'm very grateful that things are going in the direction that they are and that I'm lucky enough to find myself in a space that's growing really quickly. But I enjoy being an operator and an entrepreneur a little too much right now to go like full steam content creator, but maybe one day I will.
I would have guessed that you were full steam content creator when I first came across you, though, because you post pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many videos do you think you're churning out a week?
Probably two or
2?
three.
Okay, that's decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's still not full time. Yeah. But you're doing an amazing job at those and you're growing from those. So,
Thanks.
yeah, maybe just be a little kinder to
I
yourself.
appreciate that. This has been, if nothing else, a good therapy session.
Honestly,
For my-
that's enough for me, right?
Yeah.
If I can hype someone up, I can make them feel good, like that's it. I've done my job.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you've said that the best thing a creator can do is find someone who acts like a co-founder, not just an agent. You have been that person. I'm curious to know, what is the cost of being in that role?
I mean, taxing and challenging to do. And also, for me, I've been doing it for 2 creators, sometimes more. And each of those could have been like one person inside of those channels doing that role. I think it's always about a trade-off of time and energy spent. Like I can't do that and make content. So when I was like really full steam at management for these creators, I couldn't make content. I really couldn't. And part of me wishes I could go back and maybe see if I could figure it out. But at the time, I remember having to take myself out of the videos because I didn't think that I would have the time to focus on the behind the scenes as much if these creators also put me in their videos. Because when I started with the S Theory guys as their manager, I was in a lot of their early videos and I was just another dude hanging around. It was so much more grassroots content back then. And I remember at the time being like, guys, like, don't put me in videos because it does something to you where now you're talent and performing. And then behind the scenes, you're also trying to close deals and do all this stuff. And those two things come at odds with one another often. The biggest thing with being in this position as a co-founder or collaborator and deep partner with a creator is just like, it's a very intimate relationship. Some of the first friends that came and saw, my wife just had a baby 2 months ago. Some of the first people that came were the Yes Theory guys. I think Eric cried when he found out that I was going to be a father. That relationship is very, very intimate. And I don't really think of those guys as my clients. They're just like some of my best friends, which again, very grateful. If there's anything I think I've achieved in my career is that I've been a talent manager, quote unquote, who like built my career with marquee clients who I've been lucky enough to be with since they were small. And we don't hate each other. We're homies.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of management talent relationships that go sour after a decade. And knock on wood, ours is really, really strong. And so I think in the grand scheme of things, for anyone who wants to be a manager or is a manager or works with talent in this level of intimate way, if you can do that at the end of your career and look back and be like, we still don't want to kill each other and we're like, can call each other anytime and a ride or die, you've already won despite how much success you've had. Because there's a lot that goes into that relationship and upholding it. It's really, that again is a marriage.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I think a lot of people would say, it's hard to do business with your friends because it can go sideways really fast, or it sounds like there's a lot of trust there. And I would imagine a lot of openness and hard conversations regularly.
Yeah.
A lot of honesty. It sounds like things are going really well, but I was going to ask, do you think that it might be easier to do this with someone who wasn't your best friend, or it sounds like you wouldn't have it any other way?
I mean, neither of them were when we started.
Yeah.
It started as a professional thing. The Yes Theory guys and I were like loosely acquainted friends. I'd see them when I was in LA and when I was visiting. And then it became like, do you want to help us with this project as like a business partner? It started with business, and Eric reached out to me because he knew I managed Yes Theory and wanted advice. And then that turned into like, should I manage him? So neither of these were like, they were my friend that I would hang out with on Friday nights. And then we decided to work in a professional capacity. It just got to the point that we spent so much time and went through so many things that they're more friends now than they're not.
So it's grown.
It's grown to that. I don't know how much I would get into a business relationship with someone that is a close friend of mine. I actively avoid it. I actively avoid business relationships with people who are in my family. I actively avoid business relationships with my wife. And I'm not sure if that's the right decision. I just think there's so many smart and capable people out there that I don't want to risk these very intimate relationships in my life for the various things that I know can and often go wrong in business relationships. But I do think if you are working with someone and it started as a professional relationship, a degree of intimacy and relationship and friendship in that is powerful.
And also natural.
And natural, yeah. I think it's good. That is like, something to aspire to for anyone in any sort of co-founder relationship.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Let's say there's a CMO listening right now and they have a 23-year-old on their team who says they want to specialize in YouTube creator partnerships, and the CMO is kind of the old guard. What is the advice you would give to them?
Take a rounding error discretionary level of budget and see like what they can do with it. I'm a huge proponent in giving young people within companies who senior leadership believes in a little bit like a chance to prove themselves. I feel like I had that chance at Shopify when I joined. I was, 23 years old and or younger, and I remember asking for an opportunity to fly to Vegas so that I could go to a trade show, so that I could sign streetwear brands onto the platform and convince them to do cool marketing activations with Shopify. And at the time, no one at the Shopify had flown to the States to do something like that before. And I remember they were like, okay, you could go, but this is a test for us to see whether or not this works. And I took it very seriously, and I stayed at a cheap hotel, which I probably stayed at too cheap of a hotel because I just didn't want to
Fail.
I didn't want to
Yeah,
fail,
it'd
and
be
I
a
didn't
waste of
want.
money.
Yeah, and I thought, oh my God, they're gonna like look at this $200 a night hotel and be like, that's too much. Meanwhile, they're like, I could have stayed at $1,000 a night
Yeah,
hotel,
they
and they would have been like, it's standard for Vegas prices. So I probably did myself a disservice. But anyway, went and signed probably 6 to 8 brands through that one trip alone, and through that got me to travel to a bunch of
Wait,
cities.
6 to 8 brands on one trip?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That's insane.
Yeah. It was it was a very fruitful trip. And then that got me to be able to showcase, okay, I'm going to go to these trade shows every year. Now I'm going to Vegas 4 to 6 times a year. And then that got me to go to LA, New York, and Miami. And if it wasn't for that, I would have never met the Yes Theory guys, which would have never allowed me to get into the line of work that I'm in. So that all changed the trajectory of my life. But I think I proved it through taking the opportunity seriously. So if you have young people on your team, give them a little bit of like a sandbox to go and build something with the right parameters of what success looks like. And I think you'd be shocked at what they'll come up with. I think there are a lot of young people inside of these companies with a strong sense of entitlement of doing the bare minimum amount of work so that they can collect a paycheck and leave. I think they should be treating their jobs far more entrepreneurially and thinking about the business outcomes that they're creating, not just what their job is like and their responsibilities are, but like really what general business impact are you creating? Because if you can, as a 23-year-old, like I do think I did at Shopify, the company was at the time probably worth $1 billion, maybe $5 billion is probably today worth $100 billion. I think I created genuinely real impact in that brand because I signed a lot of brands. I changed the trajectory of the type of brands they went after. So I do think one employee can have that effect.
sure.
And I do think a 23-year-old employee at a company can have that level of effect. I think these 23-year-olds should just think that they can
Right.
and not think of themselves as an entry-level employee that can't sell things to senior leadership, because if you do it in the right way and you can speak their language, they'll take you seriously.
I love that. I think flexing your intrapreneur skills and really thinking about how you individually can impact the bottom line
Yeah.
is so important. Even if you think you can't, just try. I love that.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Final question for you.
Okay.
This podcast is called Word of Mouth. So if there's one thing that you could have people continue to pass along about you, word of mouth, how would you want to be remembered?
I think the closest I've gotten to in my reflections on this, I think, is hopefully was able to help people feel more equipped to do better business in the world and to operate on a better foundation of ownership, both creative ownership and financial ownership. But I think outside of all that, like the way I would love to be remembered is just like a good friend and a good husband and a good father more than anything is the most important stuff. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, a lot of this is more for creative expression and to be able to do what we naturally think we're good at. But if I'm remembered as anything, I think it's more of those family-oriented things.
I love that. Zach, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
At Zack Honarvar on pretty much most platforms.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.